Hello, everyone, and welcome to your NARSA Weekly Update for the week commencing Monday, the 23rd of June, 2025. It's Gary here again. I'm back, folks. I am back. If you listened to last week's pod, you will know what that means. If you did not listen to last week's pod, you should probably go and listen to it. But at this time last week, I wasn't 100% sure whether we were going to be continuing with the NARSA Weekly Update podcast. But I am delighted to tell you that we agreed that we are. So I am absolutely thrilled to be able to continue to serve you on this pod and moving forward. And you know what? It's been another week of what's the best word? Variety. Another week of variety in the Rangers Football Club and Narsa Land, and maybe not all of it good. I'll get to that in a wee bit here over the next wee while. But one of the main bits of news, of course, is that the first team squad are back today, and most of the first team squad, I should say, are back today, which is great news. I believe some other folks were given a wee bit of an extended break. I don't know if they were maybe involved in some of the internationals or such over the last wee while, or maybe nursing injuries from the end of last season or what not. But Russell Martin, kind of his job starts properly today, doesn't it? Really, the opportunity to meet the players, to give them a bit of an overview of who he is, what his team are like, and what they're going to do going forward. So that's always quite exciting. And the longer term players there, certainly James Tavernier for sure, would have been very used to that, having seen the back of many a manager and the front of the new managers as they come back. And also we had the EGM earlier today for Rangers, basically to ratify the takeover. Ultimately, is what I think it was, and by all accounts, it was a very smooth, a very open session with some quite unexpected speeches from the hierarchy, from the chairman, from the vice chairman, and the various delegation that was there. I believe Fraser Thornton, my new best pal, Fraser Thornton, was speaking, and Patrick Stewart and such, and of course Andrew Cavan and Parik Magat as well. And the resolutions were passed with over 98% support, which is great. And what that does is it grants the board the authority to issue the £20 million of new shares and ensure that the necessary framework is in place to continue to raise future capital and such. And what that's also going to do from a business perspective, now I don't really understand this side of things that much, but the club will also re-register as a private company, a PLC, I believe, and allow us to operate in a more streamlined, agile governance structure. New articles of association will be an appropriate byproduct of that as we move forward. So I imagine the Neanderthals at the other side of the city will be like, "Oh, your deed again," or something like that, by the way, But it's all positive as far as I can see. These guys are doing the right things. This EGM seemed to be a wee bit far away from when the takeover happened, but that's just probably my impatience and maybe just the life of a Rangers fan. But it was only, what was that, 2 or 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that the takeover was actually confirmed, and then we had Russell Martin coming in, and then of course everything goes on hold for the NARSA convention in the worldwide Rangers community, and then we had that today. So great to see that going through. And when I said kind of surprising speeches, my understanding is that there wasn't any. I don't believe there was an agenda item to say that anyone was going to speak, but each of especially the new guys, had an opportunity to say, "This is who I am, this is what we've done, this is what we're going to do going forward, this is what I'm willing to talk about, this is what we can't talk about for right now," and just provide a wee bit of, I guess, a wee bit of personality to who they are, what they're doing, and what their overall intent is. And my understanding is that most people, if not all people, left there with more answers than questions and feeling fairly good about it. I did see some stuff popping up on Heart and Hand earlier in terms of the Q&As and such, and I'll get an opportunity hopefully to listen to them as the day goes forward, and we'll see what that looks like. I did mention last week in terms of getting Colin Wolf Farquharson Bowman, the president of the Orlando Rangers Supporters Club, on, and I was thinking about getting him on this week, but what we've agreed to do is record a separate show that relates specifically only to the convention. So if you didn't make it to the convention and you wanted to hear about what the experiences were from the convention, you'll get an opportunity to listen to that. If you were at the convention and want to hear actually want what went on, in and around all of the events and such, you'll get an opportunity to hear that too. So I'll actually liaise with Colin a little bit later today. Right now, what time is it? 10:46 a.m. my time. Right now, I'll probably message him and we'll figure it out and we'll get that out maybe later this week or something like that. Hopefully, we'll get an opportunity to do that. Now, mentioning Colin and mentioning the convention in and of itself, I have to start off with a what Gaz got wrong last week mention, and there are two of them. So last week I had said a birthday shout out for Sheila O'Connor, who who listens to all the all the podcasts and such. And I just took a swing thinking Sheila O'Connor sounds like an Irish name. It has to be Sheila O'Connor. And then lo and behold, Julie Kingsbury got in touch saying, my name's not Sheila O'Connor. I understand why you thought that, but it's not. Thank you for the shout out anyway. So Julie, I absolutely apologise for getting that wrong. And I think I remember who Sheila O'Connor was, a wonderful woman that I met on the Wednesday night in the Southern Breeze at Old Town Kissimmee when we were there, and just a shout out to her and her family. They were all having a great time, and they were very, very kind and gracious when I got a chance to chat to them. So yeah, I completely messed that one up for Julie, and I do apologise, Julie. I hope you appreciate the second shout out 2 weeks in a row. And the second one is I thought I was doing well last week, and then someone messaged to say, you messaged, a very big thanks to Colin from Orange County, and I meant to say Orlando. For some reason, I don't know why I had Orange County in my head. So I mentioned that proactively, by the way. I mentioned that to Colin to say, listen, you're going to listen to this and you're going to realise I got it wrong. And he said, actually, technically, you kind of didn't, because I live in Orange County, Florida, and the Orlando Rangers Supporters Club is actually based in Orange County. So I'm going to take that as a bit of a win. Let's call it a draw on that one, but I genuinely did not mean to say that last week. I meant to say Orlando, and then we'll move forward from that point. So only two on a podcast that was recorded not even 12 hours after I had arrived back in Calgary after a very busy party type weekend. I think that's all right, folks. What do you think? Let me know what you think. In terms of game segment, this is typically the time where I get an opportunity just to kind of gloss over that, save a wee bit of time on the podcast. But we did get the fixtures, the domestic fixtures coming out there last week, and of course they're all subject to change. But we do know that we're now domestically we're away to Motherwell on the very first game of the season, and that's on the 2nd of August with a 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff, which very importantly, selfishly for me, means that it's 10:30 a.m., which means that the bar will be open and I don't have to staff it myself by pouring pints for people. So that's going to be a good day. It doesn't interfere with anything else I have on the calendar. My beautiful baby boy Leo is driving now, so I'm going to do what I always do in these situations and say, listen, fair's fair. We take 50% of the responsibility in this family. I don't mind driving there, and then you can drive me back. So it's going to be a great day, and hopefully if we get a good result in the Panathinaikos game prior to that, it gives us a wee bit of momentum as we are moving forward. So what we have now in terms of the confirmed fixtures is we have the friendly at home to Bruges on the 6th of July. That's 2 p.m. UK time, and then we have the Champions League qualifier against Panathinaikos. Of course, that was a draw that was made, and by all accounts, that was one of the tougher ones that we could get. Russell Martin said, "Hey, we need to play all good teams anyway, so bring it on." That was just confirmed prior to me recording here, actually, as the 22nd of July. I'm going to switch to Eastern Standard Time for this one, and that's going to be 2:45 Eastern Standard Time kickoff. That's 7:45 p.m. UK time, and then we have a friendly on the Saturday, I believe, is it the Saturday, maybe the Sunday, for against Middlesbrough, and that's 2 p.m. UK time. I'm switching between the two here. That's just the way I wrote it down, folks. Sorry. And then we have the return leg in Athens for confirmed now for the 30th of July, and that's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. So a wee bit earlier than the typical Champions League fixtures would be. There is a wee bit of flexibility when it's the qualifying times and such. And then after that, So we've got Bruges, Panathinaikos, Middlesbrough, Panathinaikos, and then we play Motherwell on the 2nd. And that's, as I said, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. It's not going to be long, folks. I mean, we're hitting, this time next week is obviously going to be the very last day in June, and then we get on with the rest of July, and that's when the games properly start for us. So exciting times ahead of us, and very, very happy to see those qualifiers getting organised. We need a couple of signings in to give ourselves a better opportunity of being excited, more excited than we are possibly right now. And on the shout-outs, I'd just like to formally welcome Lyle Cameron, who sealed his move last week from Dundee. I did hear something earlier that he might actually be currently nursing an injury, and I don't have any background about that. This past week's been very, very busy on other things, so I haven't really had a chance to really delve into Rangers stuff too much. But if that's the case, then if nothing changes, nothing changes. So if we've signed an injured player, okay, that's the way that it's going to be going forward. We'll figure out what that looks like. That was before the takeover happened, and hopefully we won't be doing that sort of thing going forward. Hopefully it's nothing serious and it's some niggle of some description or something that we already knew about, and we were giving him a treatment plan to be able to work through that. But welcome aboard, Lyle, and hopefully you do good things in the famous Rangers jersey as we move forward. I did read on Sky Sports that we also have agreed a deal with Bournemouth, for the 25-year-old right back Max Aarons. And my good friend David Edgar speaks very highly of him on the Daily Update, and I don't know anything about this guy at all, but one of these guys, his career's kind of stalled. He hasn't really done that well. Needs a proper home somewhere to bed in, and I think back to Ryan Kent. When he was a bit of a nomad prior to coming to Rangers, and it just worked out exceptionally well for us until probably his last season there. So if he needs a home and we need a wee bit more options at right back, then that would be a bit of a match made in heaven. The great thing about James Tavernier is he can play a wee bit further forward, or we had really good success with him as a centre back. Last season as he had to kind of fill in there as we were getting very, very threadbare there as well. So I don't think that spells the end for him. I would be surprised if it did anyway. And hopefully we get a chance to keep him and use him and move him around. It's not completely unheard of where captains, when they're coming to the end of their tenure, that they're not playing quite as much and they're playing more of a mentor role, more of a consultant role almost, as they kind of ease out from that particular club. So it'll be interesting to see what Russell decides to do with James Tavernier as we go forward. But that one's not been confirmed yet, certainly not at the time of recording, and we'll see what that looks like. But it's good to get a bit of momentum on that. With all the business stuff, it's not all completely taken care of, but in terms of the public, that the information that we'll hear about anyway, that's all been taken care of. So then we'll get an opportunity to take that information and then just move forward with it as well. Here's a bit of a personal shout out, and it's a belated happy 26th wedding anniversary to my lovely sister Debbie and her wonderful husband Andy, who went and celebrated their anniversary down in Mexico. This last week, I had an opportunity to spend some time with them yesterday. We went down to Kathy's 80th birthday party down at the Ship and Anchor downtown, and that was a great afternoon, and we got a chance to just catch up. Obviously, they would typically be at the convention, but they decided to sit this one out and went and enjoyed themselves down in Mexico, and it sounded like a great time. So happy anniversary. I will not forget next time. Last week was a wee bit of a fuzzy one for me as we go forward. Now, this is another personal one here as well. A good friend of mine, Jamie Hastings, semi-regular listener to the pod. Actually, I don't think he listens at all, but I'll tell him about this one this time. But semi-regular attendee at the conventions when it doesn't clash with his wedding anniversary. His boy got a black belt in Taekwondo last week, and by all accounts it was like this brutal end state process in terms of fitness, in terms of diligence, in terms of all the actual martial art that they had to do. So massive congratulations to Alan Hastings. I used to kind of take the piss out of that kid when he was younger, and obviously I don't get an opportunity to do that anymore, so I'll just have to revert back to his dad as we go forward. And here's, I don't know if this makes sense to make it, to be in the shout outs, or maybe it should be in the communication section, or maybe even in the introduction, who knows. But Rangers again, I applauded Rangers last week for standing up to the SFA with a statement, and then the SFA come back with like complete, if you read it and then read it again and then read it again, I don't recommend you do that, because I felt more insulted the more I read it. It's just absolutely nonsense, and it seems to be like we're now teenagers having some sort of online forum spat now, that and it's just we're getting less and less excited about it. Rangers think they're right. The SFA think they're right. That Rangers are doing what they need to do to be able to try and affect meaningful change going forward. We've asked for that for years and years and years because that's what that mob does at the other side of the city. And we just want to say you're not being equitable, you're not being consistent, and you're not being fair. So until you do those things, and until you actually apply the laws, not just sporadically or based on opinion or based on how you feel at a given point in time, or based, more importantly, on the team that's involved, but you actually start to apply the letters of the law. And it looks like this new regime are going to start to genuinely hold them to account, because obviously they would have been involved in that sort of thing going forward there. The key for me here, honestly, folks, is the club just doesn't back down. Don't back down. We explain what happened. We explain what we're going to do about it. Then we actually do it. And then we move on and we use that as historical reference as we're moving forward. And then hopefully things get better for everyone, by the way, but obviously selfishly for us as a club, because we have not been treated well by the authorities at all. And it's become habit by the authorities because it's been guided by that mob at the other side. So I mean, this is a life lesson, honestly, folks. Do what you say you're going to do, or say what you say you're going to do. Say what you're going to do, I should say. Sorry, come on, Gary. And then do what you said you're going to do, and then figure out if that was actually the right thing to do, and then course correct as you're going forward. So good for the club for doing that. And the SFA just petty. It's not. It's don't double down when you know you're wrong. Sort of thing. That's kind of pathetic behaviour there. Former Ranger Gennaro Gattuso is now the manager of Italy. Yep, a former Rangers player who still revers about his time at Ibrox is now manager of one of the most iconic countries in world football. That's unbelievable, because as far as I didn't track it super close here, so I could be proven wrong, of course, but he's had a very, very spotty management career. I remember he was at, what was it, Sion, I can't remember how to pronounce it, in Switzerland, on and off, and they were a kind of wacky club for a while, and then he did have a very successful spell as the head coach of AC Milan, and it looked like he was bringing them back up to certainly Champions League qualification spots and genuinely competing at the top of the table, and then they kind of parted ways, which was kind of odd. And there was a wee bit of talk, certainly his name was mentioned when we were looking at potential management candidates, but yeah, he's manager of Italy now, so it just seems to be this type of guy that keeps getting these plum jobs all the time. So good for him, congratulations, well done. I remember him when he joined. I remember being at the games when he was with us for that. What was that? He was with us for, it was 18 months or 6 months, I can't even remember now. And it just seemed to be, it was just this like Tasmanian devil ball of energy, and he would just go all over the place, get a yellow card, settle down and play some really, really good football. And it was so good to see him go on and win the Champions League and win the World Cup and such like that. It's not very often teams in Scotland get to say that about players as well. So well done to Gattuso and his team, and all the very best of luck, unless, of course, you are playing Scotland. Just another shout out for the Melbourne City Loyal Rangers Supporters Club Culture Weekend, November 21st to 22nd. Ian Ferguson, Gary Stevens, Stuart Monroe, all going to that one. I'll leave the link up there as well. In terms of the convention update, I kind of alluded to this a wee bit on the introduction today. There's been a wee bit of fallout this past week from the events at the AGM, and I provided my experiential overview last week. This is how it all played out from Gary's vantage point, and since then I have had a chance to have a chat with the president, Billy Ferguson, this past Friday to basically hear him out and progress my transition work. I put together a transition plan email and a transition plan proper on an Excel worksheet to say this is what has to happen in order for this transition to go smoothly. Both were very appreciated, and both are basically in the works now. And prior to that conversation, I should say, on Friday, we did have the unfortunate situation where our former VP, Vice President, and the sitting convention director at the time, Brian Campbell, had decided to resign his position and remove himself from the NASA executive based directly on the happenings of the AGM the Saturday before. He also posted that on the NASA WhatsApp group too, stating that basically trust had been broken and that he didn't want to work with someone that he couldn't or didn't trust. I have to say, folks, this is a blow for NASA. I know personally firsthand the effort and energy Brian puts into absolutely everything he does. especially when it comes to his Rangers career, if I could say it like that. So to lose what I would consider to be a star player, especially under those circumstances, is not insignificant in my opinion. What I can say is that next to nothing good will come from not having an actual real conversation that needs to be had. Something has to happen here. There are too many feelings, I guess is probably the best way to say it. And we need to try and figure out some way to be able to get together and have a conversation. It's almost back to what I was saying there between Rangers and the SFA. And I've been a champion of that sort of conversation in the past. Email and text are okay to a point, but there comes a time when the hard conversations need to take place. Ideally, they're proactive, but if they're retroactive, then it's better than nothing, and we'll see what that looks like. So, more to follow on that. I'm not in the habit of airing our dirty laundry or anything like that, but this was made public, which is why I'm mentioning it for right now. And hopefully, we'll get an opportunity. I'll get a chance to chat to the various key players and see where I can help as we go forward, because that's essentially all I want to do. And I appreciate this isn't like exactly a convention update, but it is more important for me to provide you with accurate information. Accurate information as much as I know for right now, so that you don't need to spend any time speculating or supposing or engaging in innuendo or anything like that. Where this is going to go, I have no idea. I will let you know what I know and what I can when I can. But we have an opportunity to take this difficult situation, I think, and make the association stronger as a result. I suspect there might be some happenings over the next week or 2 or 3 or so, and I hope the key players that are involved in this, they take the opportunity to do just that. But this is a bit of an open call to say, let me know how I can help folks, and I will absolutely do that. In terms of actual convention sites for next season, or next year, I should say, that's not been decided yet. There's nothing been really discernibly done or decided on that yet. The one thing that has been raised, that we do need to be cognizant that next year is a World Cup year in North America, with both America and Canada, and of course Mexico, being part of the host nations. And so I think North America in general will just be nutty in terms of availability and costs of properties, especially if they're anywhere close to the vicinity of the actual stadiums that they're going to be playing some of the matches in. So regardless of what country we pick to host, it's going to be a difficult ask. There was some rumblings. There's always some rumblings, to be quite honest, about going to Glasgow, and that might be something the new executive look at. It's obviously up to them. In my 13-year tenure with NARSA thus far, there hasn't really been that much. I mean, in concept, it's a relatively good idea. It would be certainly a different type, style, and format of organisation of the event, and the events in and of themselves would be slightly different, of course, being back home. But we just haven't really had much joy or appetite, quite frankly, for a Glasgow convention over the years. But who knows? Maybe now, if we have the promise of potential success on the field, it might be something where people want to go back anyway, and we can coincide it with the end of the season. I have no idea. I'm just completely speculating because I'm not involved on those conversations. But I would like some feedback from you. Where would you like the convention to be next year? If you had a choice, forget the World Cup, forget the expensiveness of any cities over other cities or locations and such. Where in the world, literally, would you want to go for a convention? We might actually put together a survey for that. Maybe I'll chat to the executive about that, see if there's an appetite for that as we move forward. Who knows? You never know. Do you know what I was actually thinking? Here's a wee bit of a personal reflection on my 13 years in the NARSA executive. If you take away the championships that we won in the lower divisions, there's certain biases out there about whether we should actually count them or not. They're part of our history, we count them. But in terms of actual league championship successes, we won one time. I didn't have the opportunity to walk in to the room behind the manager or the chairman or the captain or whomever holding the SPFL Championship trophy and have the place go a little bit wild as a result of that, because the only trophy that we won, the only championship I should say that we won, was during COVID, and we didn't have any conventions in COVID. We hoped to get the League Cup over, then we had to cancel the convention for New York, so that didn't happen. And then the year before, when we won the Scottish Cup, just after the disappointment in Seville, the club had already arranged a MyJers viewing, so the Scottish Cup was actually working at that particular time. I was really, really disappointed at that point. I have to say, it was just a lack of communication, and we just didn't tie things up. So I haven't actually managed, selfishly, in my whole time, to get my hands on the actual trophies that matter. matter. Over past years I have, when I was basically just a general attendant at the conventions, but I never really got a chance to do that. And that was really, really, I lament that a wee bit. Nothing I can do about it. It's in the past, but I hope for the existing NASA executive that we have an abundance of trophies that are coming here over the next few years, and I'll gleefully get an opportunity to hold them and get a photograph taken with them and get warned not to touch it properly and behave and such like that. But yeah, that's just the way it is. Just I joined in 2012. We all know what happened in 2012, and then I kind of semi-retire in 2025, I should say, sorry, and go into my past president's role with no opportunity to really just enjoy the past riches that previous executives have as well. Isn't that life sometimes, folks? In terms of communication section, not a whole hell of a lot. There was a good article on the Rangers website that talked Russell Martin after the domestic fixtures and the Panathinaikos game were drawn out there, that they had an opportunity to just basically ask him, how do you feel about the fixtures? And he says, we're going to get, it doesn't really change our preparation in terms of what that looks like. We will prepare properly in terms of pre-season, and then we will prepare match per match or match by match as we go forward. But quite like it, just in terms of the words that were written down, I can hear his voice in that, and we can start to get a sense of what that looks like. He's in the door. Everything is getting more and more settled. We're looking obviously for more signings and more incomings and outgoings, whatever that's going to look like, in terms of the playing staff and maybe some of the support staff and such as well. And then it will start to just feel like a regular season. I was speaking to a pal of mine, long-time Calgary resident and former member of the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary yesterday, Bobby Orr, and we both agreed, win the first 5 games of the season. I was talking more domestically, not so much the European, but let's include the European in that. We need to get off to a flyer, don't we? And it's going to be quite soon here. It's a couple of weeks away from the first friendly game, and then we start to ease and bed into that. And how many times in the last, since we got back, apart from 55, since we got back to the Premier League, or the Premiership, how many times has it really had a feeling of this is done and dusted after the first Old Firm game? For me, it has, and I'm not a doom and gloom, guys. If you've been a regular listener, I'm not that. But there's just that little thing where you're like, come on, at least give us a lead. At one point, look what happened in 55 season when we had a league. They absolutely imploded in every single sense of the word, and I want us to do that this season. Just keep going, doing what we're doing. Russell builds a team that can win in year one and see where we go from there. Don't lose points at Motherwell in the first game and then have them absolutely run over St Mirren, and then all of a sudden we're playing catch up from the very first weekend. Give ourselves the best opportunity to ask some questions, to get some space and grace for the rebuilding process, and collect some points, some very, very valuable, much needed points as we go forward. I'm actually quite excited as I'm saying all this stuff out loud here, because the season's almost upon us, and it gets back to being exciting again. So nothing too much other than that on the communications front. The Rangers Ladies Lunch, of course, presented by Molten Browns, Friday the 22nd of August. If you're interested, go on to the Edmiston House or the Rangers website and you'll be able to get information on that. And the 5 Stars do have that evening with Barry Ferguson, Alan McGregor, Neil McCann and Billy Dodds, and that's on the 3rd of January at the Doubletree by Hilton, Glasgow Central. And I believe that's where the EGM was earlier today as well. So that seems to be the thing that's going on. Okay, delighted to be back. Thank you very much as always for taking the time to listen to this one, and please do share it as I regularly ask with at least one more person, and see if we can get the word spread a wee bit further afield. We'll see what this next week brings. As I said last week, this is a watershed. Any changing of the guard in any organisation is a watershed moment, and I think it's a watershed moment for both Rangers and for NARSA, based on the things that I explained a wee bit earlier in the podcast this week. And when I said last week it was going to be watershed, I didn't actually anticipate those words were going to be quite as prophetic as they were. I hope that common sense prevails. I hope we get an opportunity for honest, open dialogue, and then we decide what we're going to do from there. That's certainly my take on it. Anyway, we need to find an appropriate way forward here, folks. Simple as that. Until next week, please do take care of yourself. All the very, very best, and I will chat to you then. Follow.